In the ever-changing landscape of the college football coaching search causes more confusion than certainty. Is it now more important to get the entirety of the package deal, more so than just the individual coaching talent?
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are we feeling, all of our Big 12 brethren? Shout out to all of the regulars. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your top stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at Alldeo State. Today, we get to jump right into the conversation of this coaching search. And all across the country, things have obviously changed drastically. For the longest time, when you had a coaching search, it was about the next coach. And, of course, the staff that he could bring in and how they could increase the recruiting. NIL obviously has added a new layer, so is the transfer portal. To where now you have to wonder, is it equally as important to get the whole package deal than just a very talented coach, a.k.a. when Willie Fritz took over at Houston, he took a lot of Tulane guys with him. Whenever Eric Morris took over at North Texas, they took a bunch of Sam Houston State guys with him. Could that now be the model moving forward? And if it is, let's break down a couple of options for Oklahoma State and what the rosters could be like if they were to bring their talents to Stillwater, Oklahoma. First up, I think we have to dive into Eric Morris, North Texas Mean Green. And one of the biggest storylines has been the fact that Drew Macemaker, who didn't start in high school, is not only leading the charge for North Texas, but he's only a redshirt freshman. So the guy that walked on to North Texas because he didn't get to play in high school is one of the top quarterbacks in the country. And the fact that he's only a redshirt freshman is very important. Going even more so than that, the running back position, Caleb Hawkins, he's only a freshman as well. I think we feel pretty good about Rodney Fields. But if you can get a package deal that incorporates a lot of these individuals, that could be huge. When you look at the offensive line, Oklahoma State has had a lot of progression this season in that department, but North Texas could potentially bring in over a sophomore, Braden Nelson. They have another individual at the other right guard spot that could be somebody that we need to pay attention to in Keon Johnson. A lot of the backups that we're going to end up talking about are going to be underclassmen. Go to the wide receiver position. Their top wide receiver in North Texas is only a junior, and Landon Sides, his backup, is a true freshman. The slot receiver, Miles Coleman, only a sophomore. The additional H wide receiver they have, Wyatt Young, only a sophomore. His backup, Dalton Carnes, only a junior. If you go to the defensive side of the ball, weak side linebacker, Shane Wider, he could have potentially another year of eligibility, and that would be absolutely remarkable for him to make this move on over to Oklahoma State. You look at somebody like a Jaden Williams, sophomore, nose tackle, that would have been recruited and coached up recently by the main man in Stillwater, America, that perhaps we should have never let him get out of here, which is Greg Richmond. Evan Jackson is a free safety who's only a junior. They've got a corner that's only a junior. His backup is a sophomore. His backup is also a redshirt sophomore. So I think when you look at North Texas and the possibility of potentially bringing some guys over, including a redshirt freshman quarterback, that is definitely enough meat on the bone to get excited about. Another college coach that likely could be an individual that brings a ton of guys with him is going to be South Florida Bulls head coach, of course, Alex Golash. Alex Golash doesn't quite have the same offensive numbers of guys that could potentially come with him, but defensively, that's where it changes a little bit for Alex Golash. So the quarterback is typically the position that leads the charge. They have a redshirt junior, Byron Brown, who very easily could follow along somewhere. One of their highest rated quarterback recruits ever, Lachlan Hewlett, is only a true freshman who could make the jump. We talked about offensive line a little bit earlier. The left tackle, the backup left tackle is TJ Lawrence, only a redshirt freshman. The backup left guard, Tyreek Major, only a redshirt freshman. Cole Skinner, backup right guard. He's only a junior. And you go to the defensive side of the ball. I think this is where Alex Golesh has a lot more capabilities here than even to some degree in Eric Morris. DJ Harris, he's going to be gone, but they do have Ira Singleton as a sophomore edge rusher. Weak side linebacker, they have Rodney Hill as a backup, only a sophomore. Then you look at the cornerback spots. James Chenal, only a sophomore. Starting strong safety, Fred Gasso, only a sophomore. Tevin Award, free safety, he's only a redshirt junior. Deshaun Rucker, he might be gone, but they have Jarvis Lee, who's only a junior, and then Jabari Smith is only a redshirt, or is only a true freshman. So I think whenever you look at both of these coaches, it's not just about what they could provide. It's not just about the staffs. In today's college football landscape, when you're looking for a new coach in the transfer portal era, you want as much of a sure thing as physically possible. And there's not much of a better sure thing than the roster of individuals that you already know, that you know how to work within the system, that you know are not going to be a distraction. They're not going to be cancerous in the locker room. They're not going to cause unnecessary heartache. This is something that has never been an exploratory option for the most part in the coaching search. It was always about the coach and what kind of recruiting landscape or regionally or geographically did he excel in. Now you have to look at the rosters because more often than not, a decent number of these individuals do follow the Willie Fritz kind of model. I think even Lance Leipold, whenever he took the job at KU, he had a handful of Buffalo guys come with him. And the level wasn't the biggest obstacle, which is precisely why KU was able to knock off Texas in his first season. So the groundwork sometimes comes with a bunch of your guys. It's a lot harder to do that as a coordinator, which is why we didn't even necessarily talk about Colin Klein, because Colin Klein, yeah, he's going to be instrumental in their offensive success, but is he going to be able to convince a lot of the mainline starters or two deep individuals to leave Mike Elko? Probably not. There's going to be some outliers here and there, but by and large, if a head coach leaves and he brings most of his staff with him, or at least a good number of his staff members with him, they already have that familiarity. You already have that cohesion, and there's not going to be, I don't know, a bunch of a learning curve. So it's kind of crazy that this is where we are now. Sometimes looking at the potential roster that could come with them is equally as important as how talented the head coach is. It's another opportunity to keep your streak alive with Saturday with DoorDash. It's almost that time. We can take a look at this last week's MVP, who delivered, powered by DoorDash. And just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it matters most. So let's break it all down. For Oklahoma State this previous week, it has to be Zane Flores. Zane delivered in a big way, putting up over 230 yards, getting his first touchdown as a quarterback in Stillwater. When the pressure was on, Zane Flores found ways to deliver. The offensive capabilities from the quarterback position was not a limiting factor in this previous game. He was able to come through without hesitation, without delay. This is a performance that we can all build on for the future of Zane Flores, regardless of where it's going to be. And just like Zane Flores delivering for Oklahoma State this previous weekend, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You can save every Saturday on your order to stack it up throughout the course of the season and save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash Terms apply. The promotional period ends November 18th. Get with DoorDash to keep your streak alive. All right, now we get to jump into the NIL conversation in Stillwater, Oklahoma. There's been a lot of misconceptions. There's been a lot of things that have been thrown around. But as we're constantly talking about those cornerstone pieces and how getting Aiden Martin to recommit and getting a recent commitment from Owasso, wide receiver Julius Wilson, those are the foundational building block kind of things that are going to be instrumental to the Cowboy culture being reevaluated or reassessed once again, re-implemented once again in Stillwater. But you got to have the stars too. And Wendell Gregory has been that dude. So much like a couple years ago when we had to find different avenues of financial incentive to keep Ollie Gordon, this is what we're going to have to do once again for Wendell Gregory. And this is the whole point to the transfer portal, in my opinion, for it to be successful. It's when you only have to plug and play a certain number of guys. When you're trying to build an entirety of a roster off the transfer portal, here and there, it can be successful. But year after year, I don't think that is going to be the best model moving forward. So you have to capitalize on the talents that you do have, and that may be more important than acquisitional needs, because if you can keep the guys invested, they're going to be able to help you recruit. And Wendell Gregory is the Ollie Gordon of this football team that we need to find a way to make sure that we're heavily invested. One of the benefits that you could have in investing in a Wendell Gregory, unlike an Ollie Gordon, is, remember, Ollie made sure that all of his offensive linemen got paid, which, hindsight being 2020, was a mistake. Wendell Gregory is not going to have the same issues kind of pop up because he's not entirely reliant upon the defensive line. Now, I would also imagine that Wendell Gregory is very well aware that you do have to have some of the big body beast down low to give you more creative space. So it will be interesting to see what guys that we identify as the primary culprits for NIL moving forward. Who are the dudes that we had to identify to be the mainstays? Obviously, Wendell Gregory is going to be right into that mix. I think Savini Hifili Kafusi needs to be 100% in that conversation. LaDainian Fields, yeah. Rodney Fields, yeah. I think of the offensive linemen, I know Grant Sigrin and Noah McKinney have entered the portal, but if either one of those dudes are worthy of a big-time NIL deal to get them to stay, this is that time to do it. We're hearing behind the scenes that donors are willing to fork over unprecedented levels of money to get Oklahoma State back where they're supposed to be, not only just in the coaching and the staffs and the former coaches that you have to, pay off their contracts and all of that, but you have to be able to lean on some dudes, right? That's the thing that potentially allows an Oklahoma State, a Big 12 school, to separate themselves from a G5. Having your Memphises of the world, your even South Floridas to some degree, your North Texases, having those dudes keep those bona fide Power 4 All-American level individuals, it's very difficult to do. But it's not necessarily so difficult for an Oklahoma State to pull that off. So you have to be able to knock that out. I think even if you look at the wide receiver position, Shamar Rigby has to be a mainstay for Oklahoma State moving forward. This is all going to be contingent upon who we hire and how many individuals they bring with them, as we just kind of alluded to in the first segment. But on top of Wendell Gregory, Rodney Fields, LaDainian Fields, I think Deshaun Brown is somebody that needs to be identified and gone after very heavily. And I think Julio Johnson could be one of those individuals that should be able to factor into being one of the primary pieces of Oklahoma State moving forward. Jacoby Sanders, Stillwater High School dude, you got to find a way to keep that guy. Is he going to cost something like a Wendell Gregory? Probably not. You could even say the same for Shamar Rigby. And then you have to look at a Haas Haney. I know we haven't got to see a lot of Haas, but the little bit we did get to see is pretty exciting. So if you're going to get an Eric Morris and he's going to bring over his, quarterback, then perhaps that changes this conversation. But I don't know about you guys. I'm not ready to just completely buy into the next coach bringing a quarterback with them and it being massively successful. I think Haas Haney has shown enough for us to be excited. It'll be very intriguing to see if he decides to play this last few weeks of the season, because if Haas Haney does that and he provides a crap ton of hope for Oklahoma State country, it'll be very easy for the next coaching staff to make a determination on whether they need to bring in a quarterback, go heavily recruit a quarterback, or make sure that they're heavily invested in somebody like a Haas Haney. Zane Flores might have an argument there as well with his recent performance. If Haas Haney isn't going to play the last few games of the season, will Zane Flores be able to take what he did in the previous game and show it forth every game from here on out? Because if he does that, then he likely would be at least somebody that the next staff wants to sit down and discuss what their place is in the future at Oklahoma State. I think Jaden Allen Hendricks should be somebody that'll be healthy moving forward. The offensive line is going to continuously need help. I would like to see Jalen Beckley stick around because he was one of those glue guys in the previous recruiting class. And he probably, at this point in time, if he had not gotten injured to the degree that he had, he probably would be playing a decent amount, sticking with the offensive lineman. Nuku Mafi has earned a significant amount of money this season, in my personal opinion. Austin Kwecki's gone. Jacoby Sanders should be able to slide over. If you can get Noah McKinney to come back, that kind of shores up the offensive line. And we're not even discussing Grant Segrin. Grant Segrin is another individual that began the season as kind of an afterthought, but he's done more than enough to earn a little bit of an NIL increase. I think whenever you look at somebody like a Malik Charles, interesting to think about. He's been pretty solid this year. Maybe not like, earth-shattering talent like a Wendell Gregory, but Malik Charles has that pedigree. He's going to continuously get bigger. I think once he learns the technical side of the different nuances at his position, he's going to be a huge piece. Landon Dean, I think, could be one of those Brendan Evers kind of guys throughout the course of his career. Amon Oates has kind of been, picking up a little bit recently. But I think it's pretty easy to look at somebody like a Shamar Rigby, right? Look at somebody like a Rodney Fields, a Wendell Gregory, a Malik Charles, and easily see that they have to be retained. I think Brandon Rawls could be in that conversation. Trip White should be in that conversation. I think Gunnar Wilson should be there. I guess Woon at least should be a part of this. But Wendell Gregory, he's the Ollie Gordon of this bunch. If we're going to go for broke after just a couple individuals, to me, you have to treat Wendell Gregory like he's this version of Ollie Gordon. Secondarily, if you can get a good number of these offensive linemen to come back on top of Rodney Fields, Jaden Allen Hendricks, I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen with Caleb Hicks, but we have enough talent individually. It's the locker room that hasn't necessarily been super tight this season, and some of that is discrepancies with NIL and what's originally being told as opposed to what has transpired throughout the course of the season. There's a lot of things that this team has from a talent perspective, and I think the right coach could get it all out of them. But if we're going to be heavily investing in NIL, part of it has to be identification of the primary dudes that need to get paid. And to me, if you're going to identify, one side and the special teamers, it's got to be obviously Wendell Gregory, got to be Rodney Fields. And then on the special team side of the ball, I think Gunnar Wilson should be one of those dudes. But unfortunately, this is the bye week. So a lot of guys are at least, entertaining the potential of looking elsewhere. Before we get to segment 3 here, we got to talk about you getting things done with Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, you've got to get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see what parts can arrive on your doorstep as early as tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business are available for you to choose from. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects into the future, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side protected. If you need parts for a project fast, Supply House has next-day delivery. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Their Trademaster perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process much smoother. So join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use the promo code SHCollege for 5% off your first order. That is supplyhouse.com, SHCollege5. Promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. Head on over to supplyhouse.com where you can see real people getting real service. All right, last but not least, we thankfully are marked safe from Big 12 heartache, it being the bye week for Oklahoma State. But the rest of the Big 12 has a lot of crazy stuff that could pop up. I think the battle between Texas Tech and BYU, it may not necessarily be an eliminator of sorts, but from like a national punditry, when it comes down to who's going to make the CFP, there will be some arguments in regards to whether this is a cancellation game. At this very moment, you've got Houston taking on UCF, the space race ball game, where perhaps UCF has the coolest uniforms to boot. On tap, you also have Colorado at West Virginia. Colorado has been reeling almost, maybe not quite to Oklahoma State's level, but pretty close. There is a 6.5-point favorite here for West Virginia, it being at home and Rich Rod being an offensive innovation kind of guy. Plus that Fox, that freshman quarterback they have at West Virginia, he's not bad. I feel like West Virginia should probably get it done here. The BYU Texas Tech game, if Texas Tech loses, they're not out of the race for the CFP, but it will definitely be a little bit of a diminishment. So it might actually almost be better for Texas Tech to beat BYU than you have multiple one-loss teams already, which could be problematic. But if you look at the CFP initial rankings, they do favor the Big 12, at least currently. And you would assume that with Utah being right there at that 13 realm and TCU not being out of this conversation either, that would be taken into consideration. The Big 12 will continue to get benefits regardless of who wins the BYU Texas Tech game. I do have a feeling that Wreckham Tech is going to get it done for whatever that's worth. Then you have KU heading over to Arizona. Maybe Kansas had their kind of opportunity to get right against Oklahoma State. I think their ability to rush the ball was pretty remarkable. However, Arizona has a real deal defense. So I actually think Arizona at home should be able to get that thing done. Iowa State at TCU, we just talked about eliminator games. This is an elimination game for TCU. I mean, Iowa State has a outside chance of making some things happen still yet. So it's an elimination game from that angle for at least one of those two squads. But thankfully, we don't have to stress about it a whole lot in Oklahoma State country because we don't have to take on that battle. Before we do leave, we have to give a shout out to Oklahoma State Wrestling, taking down Stanford very convincingly, 33-7. There was a surprise. The surprise was Casey Swiderski. He got absolutely dominated. Unfortunately, Casey Swiderski, who just had that all-star W to get him to number 2 in the country in the rankings, lazy is not the word. Complacency might be the right word. He just looked like he didn't even want to be on the mat against somebody who had 2 previous victories against Riel Woods. So you knew Aiden was not going to be a slouch by any stretch of the imagination, but he ran away with that thing. Casey Swiderski didn't even look ready to go. Landon Rabadou, however, the freshman Cowboy, he got a top 4 W. So did Zach Ryder. Sergio Vega looked very, very good. That may have been the biggest takeaway. The spark plug, Troy Spratley, did his thing. Richard Figueroa had a very, very good match. But I'll tell you what, man, that Tyler dude is sneaky. He's crafty. So I don't fault Richard Figueroa for taking that L. Casey Swiderski, though, that was concerning. Aiden Valencia looked like he was light years ahead of Casey Swiderski in that particular matchup. And hopefully that's not what we see throughout the course of the season, because Casey Swiderski has all the tools. It's just the mental thing. Maybe a little bit of a hurdle still yet for him. Thankfully, we do have David Taylor. Thankfully, we did get the W to set us up next weekend for Nationals duels. And this Sunday, we got a pretty cool doubleheader with both men's and women's basketball. So until next time, that's all we're going to have for this one. As always, I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Do me a favor. Hit the like button if you liked it. Dislike if you didn't. That's okay too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. My podcast and people out there. You're everything that makes this work. So I appreciate what you do. Go do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave some reviews. Alrighty, y'all. Later, my taters.